What's up gamers, Patty Fatty Cake here. I wanted to make a brief guide for you on how I get a purple chest at the Tombs of Amascut almost every single raid. Hard requirements, you need the desert unlocked, and you do need to complete Beneath Cursed Sands. No hard requirements on stats or gear, but having higher stats and better gear is going to allow you to more easily and quickly complete the raid. Quick disclaimer, I'm going to assume for the sake of this guide that you do already have some level of competency with the Tombs of Amascut in the main game. This is going to be focusing more on how to guarantee the purples and how to complete the raids quickly and efficiently in Leagues 4. For melee, we do want to prioritize our strength bonus for most of the gear, but what you will ultimately need is the strongest stab weapon you can get your hands on. Depending on your region, different things are going to be better for you. Here are some examples of things that can work. You have the Zamorakian Hasta, the Dragon Sword, the Obsidian Dagger Sword thing, you have the Dragon Longsword set to stab, and of course, you're trying to work your way up to the Fang, which is going to be your best in slot. You can even use a Verax Flail set to stab as your stab weapon. I did this until I got my Fang. Not kidding. For your amulet, I like to camp the Blood Fury personally. It keeps me topped up, which allows me to do more DPS when I'm using melee. For your range setup, you're just going to want to get the best crossbow setup that you currently have. Less D'hide is more than enough. You're going to want to work your way up to having full Masori. And if you are the range relic and you are going to be using range as your primary DPS, I do recommend you bring in the ruby bolts. As this is secondary for me, I'm just rocking the broad bolts. They're more than enough. Your mage setup is going to be potentially the most important thing on being able to clear this raid, especially if you are not a mage relic user. If you do not have a powered staff, you can splash on phase 2 Wardens. He can heal during phase 2 Wardens, which means that he can ultimately out-heal you and you can get completely brick-walled with raids that are not completable if your setup is not good enough. If you don't have at least full infinity, go to the Mage Training Arena right now and grind it out. I know that the grind is abysmal, it's the worst content in the game, but it is going to be worth it once you get to phase 2 Wardens. For the spell that you want to use the strongest spell you have access to. For me, that was the Ice Barrage spell on the Ancient Spellbook. Realize that you will be salted, so even if you're not 94 yet, you will be able to salt up to it and use those spells. You just have to be very careful while brewing so you don't brew down below and have your autocast on your Ancient Staff no longer work for that spell. So the most important thing on getting close to guaranteeing the purple is going to be our invocations. What I want you to do first is set up a 300 that you are very comfortable with. This depends on your skill level and your relics. Just pick ones that you know that you can complete in the main game, or just lean into your relic strengths. I would personally avoid the timed ones until you get a few of these under your belt and know that you can complete it within the target time. Oh, but Patty, your transition picture said 500 and this is just a 300. Well, with the introduction of Leagues, we have two new invocations, Blazing Tombs 1 and Blazing Tombs 2. I want you to click on Blazing Tombs 1. This is going to add 200 invocation points to your raid. It adds no extra mechanics. It just adds the extra hit points, defense, and stats to the bosses that you would normally have in a 500 without all of the hassle. This is essentially a 300 with a little bit extra damage and hit points. This can be further expanded up to a 700. Once again, this doesn't do anything other than just scale the bosses up. I do suggest not scaling this up to a 700 until you at least have a Fang, just due to how tanky the monsters are. Your percentage chance of receiving a purple is going to vary based on your tier of relic, since that's going to give you a multiplier, and your invocations, as that's going to change the amount of points that you get in the raid. Let me send a couple and I'll give you a reasonable expectation of what you should see. Okay, so this was our 500 level, and our unique percentage chance, if this was a normal game raid, would be 12.5%. For solo raids, if you are tier 6 or 7, this is going to give you a 50-50 shot of that chest being a purple. If you are tier 8, this is going to give you a 62.5% For leagues, the percentage chance of it being purple is uncapped, unlike the normal game, so you can go all the way up to guaranteed. With that being said, if you are doing this as a duo, you should automatically get a purple as long as you are tier 8. If you are tier 6 or tier 7, there is a very slight chance that it will be a white chest. And would y'all look at that? And here's our 700 done. 18.73%, once again without walk the path on. Here are the percentages for a solo. Tier 6 and 7 with the 4x multiplier, you're looking at 75%, and tier 8, you're looking at 93.65, so not quite 100%. Anecdotally, I have only seen 3 of the 500s not give a purple out of roughly 37 of them, so, you know, the tracker might not be fully calibrated for leagues, and it might be a little bit more likely, or I just got really lucky, one way or the other. Either way, if you're running these, you're going to see a purple almost every single raid. Surprise, surprise. I wanted to give you guys a brief rundown on how to do each one of the rooms. Personally, I am a melee relic, so that is what I have the most experience in, but I did get input from some of my friends who are mage and range. For the inventory, we're going to want our boosting potions. I did most of these raids without them because I couldn't get a quorum, so it's not 100% necessary. It just makes it a little bit nicer. If you're a banker's noter, you're going to want a ton of your supplies. Might as well just bring it all in because why not? If you are not a banker's noter, maybe the first few, make your inventory a little bit smaller, bring less switches, and you know, you can bring more prayer and more brews that way. If you do have banker's note, I don't really see any reason to bring brews. I would just bring hard food. The rest of my inventory explained briefly here. Dragon Dagger is for the core and for first hits with Berserker, since I'm guaranteed to max hit. The whip is for the core since it hits higher than the fang, and the rest of everything I explained in the gear section. Berserker is absolutely huge in the monkey room before Baba. You will one hit almost everything, I think pretty much everything except for the shamans, which you can then just finish off with a quick range hit. If you did not pick this, just stick to your strengths. Your main relic will hit pretty well in here. However, at these higher invocations, you will have to follow the combat triangle just a little bit. For Melee Relic, I don't think you really need to red X this unless you're taking a ton of damage or if you do not have Banker's Note. You're going to want to use your main attack style in this room. If you find yourself taking too much damage, you can set up a red X. The only difference between the red X in this mode versus the main game is that you will get 2 hits instead of 1 each cycle. I was told by my major friend that if you do have a mage setup with the normal trident and you do have a fang, the fang is going to be better DPS. With this setup, I would just set up a normal red X and do it as you would in the main game. Those with Berserker Relic can choose any boulder. You will automatically hit your max on all of them. If you do not have this, just go through the cracked boulder like normal. Here we are at the big bug herself. If you're the Melee Relic and you do not have a Fang yet, you are going to want to bring your Karis Partisan in here. It will absolutely rip through her. Rangers, I'm not sure if I should even mention this, but you're going to be blasting rubies the entire raid, not just this room. Due to Kefri's low HP though, you might want to bring a Diamond Bolt Switch. Majors, it's going to depend a little bit on setup. If your Trident is hitting, you should stick with the Trident. The 2-tick on it is going to make up for any of the splashes, and with the bonus damage, you are going to be dealing some big boy numbers. If you are just not hitting with Mage, you can just switch to your Karis and do this as if you were doing it in the normal game. Meleeers, you do not want to trap the melee Scarab because you will not be able to reasonably kill him. I like to place my dung somewhere out here, so that way you can access all 3 of the mini bosses. Mages and Rangers, you can trap them as you see fit. However, you will likely kill Kefri before you get to a second dung, so this is mostly just for duos. Next up, we have a fan favorite of the Ranger class, Range and Mage, but Rangers really excel here with the Ruby Bolts. We, of course, are talking about Zabak. If you are a meleeer and you are running Walk the Path, I would try to get into Croc earlier before Akka because you get less hits per cycle if it's a level 2 and above. I'll explain once we get to the Croc. Range and Mage Relic users, this fight is just as normal. You're just going to do a ton more damage and it's going to be really fast, so just sit back and blast them. If you are Melee Relic, things are a little different. So for Melee, you are going to be able to get 3 hits per cycle if it is level 0 or level 1. After that, you're going to want to step back, wait 1 tick, and then go back to the boss. So we step off, wait 1, and we're back on. How to know when to start your attack cycle? You can just watch and wait for his animation. Once he has started his attack animation, it is safe to attack. If you're late, you can just do 2 attacks and step back, or if the croc is level 2 or level 3, you have to do just 2 attacks, then step back. If your croc is level 4, log out and restart the raid. If you want to get in some extra DPS during these other phases, you can switch to a crossbow. Just make sure that you do mark your crossbow range if you're usually T-bowing this room, as you will get sucked in and killed by this wave attack or the other wave attacks. Once you reach Enrage phase, he will begin to attack more quickly. You're going to trade hits 1-to-1. So once you see his animation, it is safe to go in for a hit, step back, and continue. Akka is very simple, but you are going to do him differently than you do in the main game. You are not going to be butterflying him unless you are the Mage Relic, because we want him to cycle through to our preferred attack style as often as humanly possible. So for this, you are not going to have Stay Vigilant on, as he is going to skip past your attack cycle too quickly. Don't be too discouraged if your auxiliary attack styles are not hitting too much. You're going to have to rely on your main attack style to make the real progress throughout the room. You're going to want to use a stab weapon for the melee phases and during the white blob enrage phase at the end. If you are a banknote user, don't be afraid to eat your sharks in between the shadows. You're not going to lose any ticks as you're running along to the next one. Alright gamers, we are here at Wardens. This is where we have to play to our strengths. Melee users, you are getting a 2-down no matter what. Mage and range users, you can get a 2-down, you can get a 3-down, so you're going to play this slightly differently depending on which one you have. Range users, since you can get a 3-down, you're going to want to block the right hand or the western side. For this, I recommend you turning off the 3x3 Kefri balls, as that's going to be a nightmare for P3. The reason for blocking this side is that you will start off in range phase, then it will go mage phase, and if you are unlucky and do not get the 2-down, you will get another range phase, and since you do have the range relic, you'll be able to finish this much more quickly. Mage and melee boys will be blocking this side. The biggest question I've gotten from other gamers is what style should they use on the core, and like every other area of this raid, you should use your primary attack style, the one that you have the relic for that makes you shoot twice as fast. I know melee automatically maxes, but since you are shooting so fast with range and mage, it is advantageous to use that style on the core, even if you're not maxing every single hit. The mage section of P2 can be terrible without a charged staff. I got my charged staff last night and I've done 1 raid with it. All of my other 40 or so have been with casting Ice Barrage with a ancient staff. It is miserable, it takes forever. That is why you need to do every single thing in your power to make sure that you only have to do this phase once. Unless you're Mage Relic, and then it doesn't really matter as much. When you are in this section, use the best offensive prayer that you do have. If you are on the Runa set of prayers and you are doing the Ancients, I would use Intensify and Glacie's Vow, as that's going to give you the best DPS over this phase. When the core comes out, you blast it and hope for the best. I do think that it would be worthwhile to bring a Dragon Dagger and use those specs just to ensure that you get the 2-down. Once you're done with P2, it starts P3. It's exactly the same as the normal game, just complete it as you normally would, just a hell of a lot faster thanks to your relics. You know, sometimes the chest at the end of the raid is white, and that's perfectly okay because we are maximizing our chance of it being purple, and it will be purple more often than not. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you got anything out of this guide, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I am sure I missed a ton of stuff. If I did, make sure to drop it down in the comment section below. If you have any questions, do the same. I check my comments once a day or so, so I will see it and I will get back to you.